Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Bailey here, and I'm going to help you out with applications of quadratic functions. This is part one of applications of quadratic functions. We're going to watch this video, and then you guys are going to attend my real live lesson. I'm so excited. All right, some of the things that we're going to look over, you will want to have some paper and a pencil ready and to be copying down. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is the essential question that we want to make sure that we can answer is, how can you create quadratic equations in one variable and use them to solve problems? We're going to go into the solving problems part more in the live lesson. Here we're just going to give the sort of nuts and bolts that you will need for the live lesson and solving the problems. The standards that are covered are, we're going to relate the domain to its function and graph where applicable, and quantitative relationships. So we're just going to deal with the numbers, all right? And we will be looking at the taking square roots, quadratic formula, and factoring. All right, so here are the three different ways that I just wanted to show you guys. You've kind of seen them, bits and pieces here and there, but it's nice to get a good summary. There are three different ways to solve a quadratic function equals three ways to solve, and there's actually more out there, but we're just going to go into these three. So remember that when graphing, if we have this same equation, I want to show you how you can relate the three. See, notice that all of them are going to have the same results. You're going to get the same things out of them, but it's great to get a different picture. So when you're graphing it, of course, you get the parabola, and here are the roots. This is a 1, and this is a -1, and this is a -3, and here's your y-intercept. With factoring, you can notice the equation's exactly the same. We can factor it. Remember that our two numbers, 1 and 3, need to multiply to give us 3, and add to give us 4. So we have it factored. And then once you have it factored, which you learned before, you're going to set it equal to 0, set each factor equal to 0. And then you can, once you subtract 1 on both sides, you'll see that x equals -1. What that means is that if I put a -1 in here, it's going to give me 0 here. And when we multiply 0 times this, or anything else, it's going to give us 0, which results in a true statement. All right, so we're always looking for that true statement. And if we put x equals -3 or x equals -1 into this place right here, we are going to get that result, a true statement. What we're really going to get into is quadratic formula. This is the part that I really want you to write down, okay? This is just an overview of what the quadratic formula does, and we're going to go into depth in just a minute. But here is your actual formula, okay? And remember that we need it in standard form, so we have A, B, and C, and I'll go into that in a second. But what you're really doing is just replacing the coefficients 1, 4, and 3 into this quadratic formula. So notice that B turned into 4 and turned into 4 here, and the 4 was already there, and A turned into 1, and C turned into 3. So you're just filling it all in. And then we have to really remember our order of operations. Once we get everything filled in, I like to keep my -4 there and the plus and minus, and I'll explain that in a minute. But you can go ahead and evaluate your exponents and this multiplication here to give you 16 and 12. And then, once you have this part, you can just go ahead and subtract. And I think we all know that the square root of 4 is 2, but if not, you can always check it on your calculator. And at this point, we can get into the plus and minus. The plus and minus will split it into two equations. And remember, you don't have to know it all now. We're going to go in depth in a minute. So when we split it into two equations, notice we have the plus there and the minus right there. Okay? We fill it in, and we get the same numbers that we got on factoring or graphing. It's really pretty cool. All right. So this is the problem that we're going to go into depth a little bit more on. It's solving an area problem. So we got this cute little turtle here, and this can be any kind of problem. This could be a pool with a frame. It could be a picture frame. It could be a deck around, around a flower garden. So you're in the process of framing this photograph. The original print is 8 inches by 10 inches. You want to frame this photograph so that the total area of the frame in the photo is 168 square inches. All right? So we're going to bring about an old formula, area equals length times width. So we have our old formula here, and we have area equals length times width, or it's also referred to as base times height. Okay? So we take a look, and notice how we have filled out our our picture right here. We've got the 8 there, the 10 there. We don't know the border, so we just put an X because we don't know the border. And then we check out our width of our border, okay? And it works like this for each of the problems. If we have, and if we just go from top to bottom, we know we have an X here, an 8 here, and an X here. And to get to this next step, all we need to do is combine our like terms. We've got X and X, that gives us 2X. And then we have 8, that gives us 8. All right, so now we have our total width. I'm sure you guys can figure out our total length, but I'll fill it out here for you. We got X, and we got 10, and we got X. And we fill that in together, and we get 2X and 10. All right, so here's the part that we just need to fill in like we used to. They told us earlier that our area was 168. So we have 168 equals, and I'm just going to fill in the length and the width. We know our length is 2X plus 10, and our width is 2X plus 8. There you go. So we get those together. And remember from a while ago when I like to call it double distribution because you're actually distributing your first term over to your other first term, and we're distributing the 2 into both of those places. And then we're distributing the 10 into both of the other places so that everyone gets their fair share. And this is going to result in 4 terms. So we have 168 equals 4X squared plus 16X plus 20X plus 88. Okay? So now we have that, and you guys do want to be writing this down, okay? Because these are a good set of notes that you can have with you. You'll see this again. So now we need to combine those 2 middle terms because they're both X and exactly the same. So we have 36X plus 88. Oh, let me go back and put that plus there. 36X plus 88. All right, and now in order to really solve this, this is great. We've got our length and our width, and we've multiplied it out, but we need it to get in standard form. Now, standard form would have a 0 or a y over there where the 168 is. So how do we get that 168 on the other side? 168 is positive, so we need to subtract 168 from both sides. There you go. All right, so now we have 0 equals 4X squared plus 36X plus 88. There you are. So now we have it in standard form. And just as a review, in case you guys have forgotten, write this down. Standard form equals AX squared plus BX plus C. All right, there's our standard form. All right. And you guys can always pause this if you don't have it written down right now. All right, so now we're going to use the quadratic formula. We have our 4X squared plus 36X, and we have a minus 88 there. All right, hold on one second. It should be a plus 88. Hold on one second. Hey guys, so do you see that minus 88 right there? Well, in this previous one, when I subtracted minus 168 from both sides, I did not actually put a negative 88. It should have been negative 88 instead of plus 88. I make mistakes all the time, but you know what? It's okay. Just go back and check your work if something looks silly. All right, so we do know it's negative 88. That should be there. So we'll go ahead and put that negative 88 right there. So we have 4X squared plus 36X minus 88. Awesome. All right. So now if we look at our next one, when we fill this in, the quadratic formula is it looks really complicated, but we just kind of like puzzle pieces. We just have to put with the pieces where the puzzle goes. So we're going to go ahead and put for our B, if you notice right here, our B is going to be 36. So you keep the negative there. You just plug in whatever B was and whatever sign it has, because you'll see that that negative 88 will actually go in there for C. So I'm going to put the B in there, and we're going to fill it in. So we have, we've got 36, and that's going to be 36, or minus 36, And then we're going to have our plus or minus. Oops, not enough room there. We got to kind of change that font. All right. So we have 36 plus or minus, and it's going to be 36 squared. And then after 36 squared, we're going to have minus 4, and our A is the 4, and our C is that negative 88, like that. Okay, so we have it filled in, and now when we're at this point, all we need to do is take a look at our second step. Now, this is order of operations. You can go ahead and keep that minus 36 there, but we are going to square this, and we're going to multiply these and put it under the radical there. So we've got our minus 36, and you guys try to fill it in before me. All right, 36 squared is this large number. 36 times 36 is 1296, plus, and then 4 times 4 times the 88 is going to be 1408. Remembering that because you have two negatives here, see that negative there and that negative there, it's going to make it a positive. So we got to keep that positive there. That's pretty important. And then we've got to put our numbers down here. We forgot to do that again, but it's really not a big deal. As long as you go in order and keep it neat, you can figure out where you're making some mistakes. So I'm going to put my 2 times, and it tells me if I look over in that top right corner, it tells me I need A. And then I see A is equal to 4. So I'll just put that in there. And we can evaluate that right there at the bottom. Okay? So doing this in steps makes it a little bit easier. Not totally easy. You know, we still have to pay attention, but it does help out. All right, when we add those two numbers together, we have 2704 is under the radical, and we just keep carrying our 8 down. I know it's a little extra work, but it keeps it nice and neat. All right, so at this point, we're going to still have our negative 36, but we can take into account, if we take a look over here, we want to take the square root of 2704, okay, or 2,704. Take the square root of that in your calculators. What you'll end up getting is the number 52. Look at that. All right, so, and then, so we have that one. And then if you'll notice that at this point, it does change a little bit. That's where this plus and minus comes in. It means that mathematicians are lazy. We don't want to write this whole thing twice. I'm sure you wouldn't either. So we put the plus down here, and then this one is the minus. So everything stays the same throughout the whole thing until you get towards this step after you evaluate the square root right there. So we have plus 52, and this one's going to be minus 52. So we'll keep that negative 36 there. But then we'll put in minus 52. Okay, and we have 8. 8 just keeps carrying until we're ready to use it. So we keep the 8 there. All right, now this one we just add and subtract our tops. So our top there is going to be 16, and our bottom is 8. And then our top over here is going to be a larger negative number because we have two negatives together. So we have negative 88. And then our bottom number here is going to be 8, just like it's been. So then we just evaluate our final two numbers. X equals 2 for that one, and X equals negative 11. Now, when we think about measurement, we have to be really careful. Measurement cannot have what? It can't have a negative. No negative numbers allowed. That would be silly and totally not in the right realm. So we have our final answer is 2 inches. That's our final answer for the border. Remember, we were looking for the border here. We wanted the border, so we know it's going to be 2 inches. And you did it. That's using the quadratic formula. So let's just review, because we know that's just one problem. We're going to write the equation for the problem in standard form. You're going to find your A, B, and C values. You're going to use this handy-dandy and maybe not as complicated as you once thought formula. And then you're going to find the difference of the intercepts and express your answer as a positive value. Remember, no negatives allowed for time or for measurement, okay? Because you can do these problems for time, and you can also do them for measurement, all right? So let's check out this one. A juggler throws a ball up at an initial height of 4 feet with a speed of 12 feet per second. If the juggler did not catch a ball, about how long will it take the ball to hit the floor? Okay, so this is what we call an elapsed time problem. They're asking us for time, but we're still using a quadratic formula or quadratic equation here, quadratic because of the 2. So anytime we're using a quadratic equation, if we want x, then we can just use the quadratic formula. All right, so we want to fill this in. Now, this is the projectile motion formula, so you do want to write that down. And this is in your notes and in the lesson, so you can always find it, okay? It always starts with -16. So we also know that in the projectile motion formula, v is our speed, and s is the initial feet off the ground, feet or distance off the ground. So we have 12 feet per second, and we have height off the ground is 4. So we're going to fill it in so we can use our standard form. Okay, so we have y equals -16 x squared, and the -16 is always there. Our speed is 12x, and our height is 4. Now, sometimes they use t when they use t instead of x. It doesn't really matter which one you use, as long as you know that you are solving for time. Okay. I like to use x because some of the graphing calculators prefer x. So, all right. So let's go ahead and fill this in. Just like we did before, we have our b value is 12, or the middle value. Okay. Underneath the radical, we're going to have 12 squared. And then we're going to have -4, which is always there. Our a is going to be -16, and our c is going to be 4. Okay, so we fill it in just like we did before. The bottom is 2 times our a value, which is -16. Okay, and at this point, you know how to use the quadratic formula. We're just going to do our order of operations, keeping everything as neat as possible. So we keep our -12 there. All right, inside we know that 12 squared is 144, or if you didn't know it, don't worry, just use your calculator. And we're multiplying those 3 numbers together to give us 256, remembering again that a negative times a negative will give us that positive value. Okay, and we'll just make sure you guys know that this is still under the radical. Okay. All right, so now we've got that bottom number that we keep just dragging along with us, and we can go ahead and evaluate that to be -32. Okay, and we're just going to keep that -32 is just going to keep going with us. So we have our -12. We have our 144 plus 256 will give us 400. What a nice number there. And then this is the part where we're going to go ahead and split up that plus and that minus. Okay, one's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. So we just keep our values here at -12, and this is the point where you're going to take the square root of 400. The square root of 400 is 20. All right, and this one over here is almost the exact same thing, -12. Instead of a +20, we're going to have a -20. Okay, and our bottom numbers are still the same. They just keep being filled out and dragged along with us. All right, and then our last step is -12 plus 20, which will give us a +8 over still a -32. And then this one over here, the negative and negative is a -32. And we have it over a -32. Now, a bunch of you guys might see what's happening right now, but if we split this up, we know that this number right here on the left is going to give us a negative value. So this, we know, is going to be negative. So at this point, because positive over negative is negative, we don't use it, okay, because it's negative. So we're going to use this other one over here. So x equals 1. And now this is where you want to go back and look at what you're asking for. They're asking us for time. So we go and look and see, and it's seconds. We always want to keep our units in mind. So this is 1 second. Okay, the ball was in the air and didn't hit the ground until 1 second had passed. Okay, and if this is like our turtle problem with a frame, then we want to go and reread and see, is it feet, is it meters, is it miles, what kind of unit are we dealing with? All right, awesome, guys. So we are done. That was a quadratic formula. So in this lesson, there are 3 ways we learn to solve a quadratic equation. We're going to learn a little bit more in the live lesson for graphing. You already knew about the factoring, but you got to set it equal to 0. And we mostly looked at the quadratic formula, but they all produce the same results for x. So I'm so glad you guys could come, and I can't wait to see you in the live lesson. All right, what you need to attend the live lesson. You must have the password to attend part 2. The password is BillyGoat because it's so much fun. So please have your notes, blank paper, and a pencil ready to complete your lesson. You will be doing so much and it will be so fun. So see you soon.